Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. A former provincial championship wrestler speaks out.
My stomach dropped. In the moment, it felt like all of it was for nothing.
Her shock and disappointment at what happened after filing a sex assault complaint against a coach. Plus, residents of an Abbotsford homeless camp move out before they're forced out.
We don't really have much choice.
Why they say the shelter space they're being offered isn't good enough. And a major highway closure as a fast-moving brush fire sparks in West Vancouver.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. A former teen athlete from BC is speaking out tonight about the complaint she filed, claiming her wrestling coach sexually assaulted her when she was 17. In an exclusive interview with CBC News, she tells Rihanna Schmunk why she's shocked at the outcome and scared for other athletes.
It's hard for Madison Payette to look back at her time in wrestling.
I feel like for me, there's just been such a negative tone now to wrestling.
She says she was sexually assaulted by her coach, Aso Polani, 10 years ago when she was 17. Last year, she complained to governing bodies, hoping he'd be banned for life. Instead, an independent BC disciplinary panel suspended him for 3 years, half of which is already over.
My stomach dropped. In the moment, it felt like all of it was for nothing. My question was, how many people have to be sexually assaulted for him to be banned for life?
Polani denies the allegations and is appealing the decision. He is not facing any criminal charges in the matter and will be free to work with minors again in 2025. Payette says her experience affected her into adulthood.
You know, at the time, you don't realize the impact it's going to have on the rest of your life until you finally hit an age where you realize like how wrong it really is, and you know it probably did affect my mental health.
The BC Wrestling Association updated its discipline and complaints policy after Payette's case so that sexual mistreatment toward a minor moving forward will carry a presumptive sanction of a permanent ban. In a statement to CBC News, it says, "We firmly believe that we have a duty to ensure all athletes have a safe environment in which to compete and are committed to improving any existing safe sport initiatives." In recent years, scandals within hockey, gymnastics, and soccer have put pressure on governments to take action. A parliamentary committee has heard from athletes and advocates demanding an immediate judicial inquiry into abuse in Canadian sport and cases like Payette's.
This is a classic example of how the sport system deals with abuse complaints. And it's so emblematic of how broken our system is and just how re-traumatizing these processes are for survivors.
The BC Wrestling Association says it can't comment on the length of Polani's suspension because the panel was entirely independent. Rihanna Schmunk, CBC News, Vancouver.
To a story now that may also be upsetting. BC First Nations leaders are calling for the resignation of the Minister of Children and Family Development after a horrific case of child abuse and torture. As Mayor Baines reports, the case involved starvation and the eventual death of a young First Nation boy.
Premier David Eby responded to the calls for the Minister of Children and Family Development to resign. The case involved an 11-year-old First Nation boy and his 8-year-old sister, who were tortured, starved, and abused. A man and woman pleaded guilty to aggravated assault and manslaughter that led to the boy's death from a beating, according to court documents.
They deserve everything that the court gave them and so much more.
A judge sentenced the couple to 10 years in jail.
Beyond the conduct, the reprehensible conduct of these individuals, the system failed these kids as well. Our social workers were supposed to be checking on them. Our social workers were supposed to be ensuring their safety. And something went horrifically wrong here.
He supports a review and investigation. The last visit the Ministry of Children and Family Development made to the Indigenous couple's home was 7 months before the child died following a beating. Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, president of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, said in a statement today, "This was not an isolated incident and it was entirely preventable. I am greatly disappointed to see that MCFD has not demonstrated any sincere steps towards accountability and prevention at a broader level." The case was heard in Chilliwack Provincial Court earlier this month. Police found evidence at the home, including 16,000 videos depicting months of abuse from 2020 to 2021. The province's child and youth advocate says her office will look at where the failings were in the system and also how the pandemic affected the case.
This time next year, we will have a full investigation and a public report done with recommendations.
First Nations leaders want the government to overhaul the foster care system. Minister Mitzi Dean apologized to the family and children involved and says her ministry will cooperate with the probe. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
To a fast-moving brush fire now in West Vancouver that has crews trying to work quickly. Highway 99 north and south at Horseshoe Bay has been closed. Our Saurabh Sandhu is covering this tonight and joins me now. Saurabh, what can you tell us?
Anita, the brush fire started approximately 1 o'clock this afternoon, right behind me, close to Highway 99, just north of Highway 99, near Horseshoe Bay Village. With a steady breeze blowing, fire spread and things changed quickly. Soon after that, both lanes on Highway 99 were closed for traffic. That had people scrambling to change their plans.
There was some kind of a delay on the highway as I was driving northbound towards Squamish, and I could see the smoke, and I thought, uh-oh, there's something going on, so I detoured down into Horseshoe Bay.
Because I don't think many people can get to the ferries.
Yeah, it seems like traffic's been stopped both ways, so we're kind of emptying out in there.
West Vancouver Fire and Rescue attended the scene with immediate help from District of North Vancouver, which pressed 2 fire engines into service. Coastal Fire has also been called to help. Water bombers have been spraying water over the fire, which is said to be closer to White Lake. The city of West Vancouver says they have closed all access to areas and parks around White Lake. Now, it's not clear when Highway 99 is expected to be open again, and we still don't know what started this fire. Anita?
Our Saurabh Sandhu reporting from West Vancouver tonight. Thank you. And in northeast BC, lightning storms over the weekend have had wildfire crews on alert. More than 10,000 strikes hit the region. More than 100 wildfires are still active in the province, with most of them in the Prince George Fire Centre. The largest of them is the Donny Creek blaze. It has now charred more than 5,700 square kilometres of forest. While recent rain has helped things a bit, Environment Canada says above average temperatures and more lightning is forecast for the first half of this week, along with very dry conditions. Johanna Wagstaff is away tonight. Amy Bell joins us to talk a bit more about that lightning that is expected. What do we know?
Yeah, so in the next 24 hours, we're really going to have to keep an eye on things because we're going to see this unsettled air mass right from that northeastern part of the province all the way down through the Peace, the Caribou, even into the Kootenays and the Okanagan. So a large swath of the province could really see a lot of these lightning strikes, as I mentioned, in the next 24 hours or so. Temperature-wise, we were in for a warm one today here on the south coast. We're still at 23 Vancouver Airport and out in Pitt Meadows, and 22 in Hope. So not as warm in the Fraser Valley. We will continue to see that heat throughout the week. And for us on the south coast, we're looking at sunshine as well. And these temperatures all closer to the water at YVR proper. So we'll see them a little bit warmer as you make your way in towards the Fraser Valley. Much of the province, of course, still dealing with very warm temperatures. For the next several days, we'll hit about 22 at the water tomorrow. A little bit heavier on the cloud at times in the morning, and that will clear off. And then we're looking at clear blue skies for Wednesday, Thursday. And at this point, I'll just spoil it for you. We're looking at sunshine and warm temperatures all the way through into the weekend. I'll have another look, though, across the province in a few minutes.
Okay, thanks for the spoiler.
You're welcome.
BC's police watchdog is looking into shots fired between officers and a suspected impaired driver early this morning in West Vancouver. Officers say there was an exchange of gunfire with the male driver who was hit by a police vehicle. The man was taken to hospital with injuries. Now, this all happened on a Highway 1 off-ramp at 15th Street just before 3 a.m. It caused traffic tie-ups throughout the morning as the investigation continued. And today is deadline day for people living in a controversial highway settlement in Abbotsford. As Joel Ballard reports, the handful of encampment residents have been offered housing, but some say it's not enough.
Trish has lived in this trailer at the encampment for the last year, but today she's packing up her belongings.
Well, we don't really have much choice.
The province set a deadline for residents to move out. About 9 people still live here. It was up to 30 at its height. Dubbed by the mayor and the local police as a place of violence, with police responding to 1,500 calls in 2022 and another 600 in 2023.
Criminal code offenses that we've been engaged with on this site range from assault with weapons, serious firearms have been pulled out of this location here, both loaded imitation ones. We've removed axes as well as swords from this encampment.
The province says there is shelter space available for anyone who wants it.
When we do have to make that decision to close an encampment, having adequate spaces for people is our priority as a province, and that is certainly the case in Abbotsford.
But Trish says shelters aren't adequate alternatives. Sometimes cramped shared spaces, limited storage options for residents' belongings, and there are safety concerns. Trish recently secured a spot.
Already my stuff has been stolen, my purse. I've been there a week and I've had $2,000 go missing.
Local advocacy groups have called on the province to halt the decampments, calling for more dignified housing options.
In a lot of cases, the shelter or housing that's being offered doesn't actually meet the needs of the person. So, for example, if they have a disability or if they have a partner, then they may not actually, that shelter that they're being offered may not actually be relevant to them, in which case it's not meaningful as an offer of shelter.
Trish will try out the shelter, but she doesn't know how long it will last. What's really needed, she says, is for the province to invest in more affordable and private housing options.
Each one of you guys out there, I don't care who you are, what job you have or whatever else, you're all just one step from being right here too. And it's not that hard to lose.
The province says residents can take an extra day to clear out, with cleanup set to begin on Wednesday. Once cleared, the province plans to build a 50-bed temporary shelter on this site. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Abbotsford.
A controversial building proposal in Chinatown has gotten the final okay from the city of Vancouver today. The proposed condos at 105 Kiefer Street have been in the works for a decade, being hit with a lawsuit and plenty of vocal opposition. Our Liam Britton is live at City Hall tonight. Liam, a big turnout, I'm sure. What happened?
Yeah, that's right, Anita. I mean, maybe a development permit board meeting isn't everyone's idea of a hot ticket on a warm Monday night here in Vancouver, but there's a lot of interest in this project. And today's decision was really a decade in the making. Take a look. So this, dozens of people were here for this meeting with, 105 Kiefer, a 9-story condo building, given the green light during that meeting. Now, this building had been rejected by council and a former makeup of this board in years past, but the developer, Bathe, won a lawsuit forcing the board to take a second look. And that second look has paid off with the building's approval.
Liam, like you said, this project has been in the making for a decade and opposition has continued all that time. What has made it such a flashpoint?
Well, for opponents of this project, this is about a changing and gentrifying Chinatown. They're quite worried about the condos being sold at 105 Kiefer, that they won't be affordable and they'll just lead to more expensive housing, displacing people within the neighborhood. They also say it doesn't fit in with the cultural qualities of the neighborhood, and they're devastated by today's approval.
We just want to say that we condemn the board's decision today. I think today marks a singularly appalling moment in the Vancouver's long history as a city that continue to prioritize elite developer interest and continue to prioritize profit over people.
Now, the developer, Bathe, said in a statement after the unanimous vote that the approval is, quote, an important and positive step forward for the city of Vancouver's efforts to revitalize Chinatown. And we look forward to collaborating with community partners as we move forward with the project. And worth noting that there are some some conditions with this project. Some groups do support it, like the Chinatown BIA. And as far as the city is concerned, after 10 years, this project is finally ready to move ahead. Anita?
All right, Liam Britton live for us tonight at Vancouver City Hall. Thank you. Well, a heavily used bridge in Merritt is going to be replaced after being destroyed in BC's major flooding event a year and a half ago. The province is funding the project, which is expected to start next summer. The Middlesbrough Bridge partially collapsed when the Coldwater River overflowed its banks during the atmospheric river in November of 2021. The span connects the city's downtown with Colettville, that neighborhood. The new design will be more resilient to future flooding events, make access safer for pedestrians and cyclists, and revive commercial traffic, according to the province. Construction is expected to be finished in early 2025. And 4 new animal rescue shelters will be built around BC as organizations struggle to handle the influx of abandoned, neglected, and abused pets. The province will spend $12 million on the pet rescue centers in Vancouver, Duncan, Prince George, and Fort St. John.
One of the things that's always close to my heart is our animal protection work. And when education and when investment fails, sometimes we do have to seize animals. And without having specialized centers for these animals to spend time, we wouldn't be able to do the life-saving work that we do.
The BC SPCA says it will either replace or upgrade current facilities in the communities that are closed or outdated, like Fort St. John, which hasn't been open since last year. In Vancouver, the money will be used to build a new animal center, vet hospital, and education outreach center. Well, if you're a big fan of the Juno Award-winning rock band Nickelback, some good news for you.
When this is how you remind me of what I really am. This is how you remind me of what
Nickelback will be inducted into the BC Entertainment Hall of Fame tomorrow. The Vancouver-based act originally got their start in Alberta as a cover band, but they released their debut album as Nickelback in 1996. The band will get a star on the Granville Street Star Walk and will be part of more than 300 previous inductees who have been recognized for their contribution to the province's entertainment industry and cultural landscape. Well, the BC NDP comfortably held its 2 seats in 2 by-elections over the weekend, one in Vancouver Mount Pleasant and the other in Langford Juan de Fuca on Vancouver Island. One political analyst says the results prove the former BC Liberals, now BC United Party, has its work cut out.
Perhaps BC United needs to do more work reintroducing themselves under their new name to voters, or perhaps more ominously for the party, it suggests that voters are not convinced of the wisdom of the new name change, and that they are looking for another place to vote when they are looking for an alternative to the BC NDP.
Preliminary results show BC United saw its share of the Langford Juan de Fuca vote drop by more than 6 percentage points since 2020. That's out of about 51,000 registered Vancouver Island voters. Now, only 26% cast ballots. When asked about the poor showing by the BC United, David Eby, Premier, said the NDP isn't focused on what the other parties are doing.
I think that if we stay focused on the core priorities of British Columbians, we will do well in elections. But if we get sidetracked into partisan politics concerns, then we're going to lose track, and British Columbians will rightly wonder if their priorities are ours.
Eby is quashing speculation about an early election, saying he'll be sticking with the fixed election date. Well, thousands attended the funeral of slain Sikh leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar yesterday at the Surrey Gurdwara, where he was shot down on Father's Day. As Yasmin Gandham reports, his death has sparked fear and outrage.
Hundreds of community members and supporters of the Khalistan movement came together, all to commemorate the life of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was the president of the Guru Nanak Gurdwara in Surrey. Supporters remember him as peaceful, humble, and loved in the community. Sikhs from across the country traveled to Surrey to pay their respects.
All of us, we came from Edmonton, and people came from all over the Canada, US. Everybody represent here.
The scene of the memorial where he was shot dead in his vehicle in this busy Gurdwara parking lot last Sunday night. Nijjar was a prominent leader in the Sikh community and an activist with the independence group Sikhs for Justice. Justice, which advocates for the establishment of an independent Sikh state of Khalistan in India. Attendees are convinced his death is a result of foreign interference from India.
We will target you at the center of your identity, the Gurdwara. I mean, for a Sikh, their Gurdwaras are their core place. It's their place of resolution. It's a place of worship. It's a place of community.
Minorities, Sikhs are no safe anywhere in the world. Where we go.
IHIT investigators say they are looking for 2 heavier-set male suspects in the killing of the 45-year-old father. While police have acknowledged there is speculation stemming from the attack linking it to the Indian government, investigators say they have not linked the shooting to foreign interference, and there are no reasons to believe the Sikh community in Canada is at risk. This comes after a report released earlier this month by Canada's National Security Advisor named India as a major actor in foreign interference, including election meddling and disinformation campaigns on social media.
Fear that the Indians are now resorting to violence on Canadian territory. I mean, there's a long history of Indians engaging in acts of violence against Sikhs in India. As a result, many Sikhs were granted asylum, refugee status in Canada.
Niger was organizing an unofficial referendum for an independent Sikh state at the time of his death. Mourners gathered at the Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara for a final goodbye to Niger and say they won't be silenced.
It's not an attack on an individual, but it's an attack on a faith.
Yasmin Gandham, CBC News, Surrey.
There's nothing like a mid-afternoon nap. Well, for some people, and new research says napping more may keep your brain young. After the break, we're live for more on this in our bi-weekly medical column. Thanks for sticking with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. A new Punjabi Canadian sitcom is all about family, love, and laughter. Our big Punjabi family puts Abbotsford and Canadian talent in the spotlight. Vineet Brach spoke to the lead writer and actor about the comedy.
Big Punjabi Family is a new sitcom following a multi-generational family living in Abbotsford.
From Vancouver to Abbotsford.
Therapist Sitara and her family are forced to move in with her Punjabi in-laws after they lose all their money in a bad investment scheme.
We have Lena Monroe, who's the writer of the show. Love, laughter, chaos, all under one family roof. What do you want people to take away from this show?
People to take more empathy and kindness. But what you're going to see in this show is a lot of love, despite the fact that they all live together. And I think we need to model kind and loving families for a younger generation. It's something pretty special that South Asian families do live together. That's changing now. Maybe it doesn't have to change.
She says the show is unique, using both Punjabi and English languages.
Are you mad?
Of course not. The moment your language dies, your culture kind of dies, doesn't it? This one is like English, Canadian mockumentary. There's none of those.
No.
This is the first one of its kind in all of North America, and I have seen multiple generations sit in the same room and enjoy the show. It made my heart so happy.
The show was mostly shot in Saskatchewan, but includes footage of Abbotsford.
Now we have Arshdeep Purba, who plays the mom in this show. I noticed that a lot of the roles here were Punjabi female-driven roles. What did that mean for you?
I feel like women in our culture, in our families, are not credited enough. So to be able to see how women-oriented this show was, I felt like was a gift to the moms.
Yeah, I know a lot of our families are first generation or multi-generational homes. So why did you think it was important for you to be part of this show?
I'm also first gen, and just seeing how my parents go about their life when they immigrated here, they have different morals, different values, different beliefs. I think this show is also just showing the reality of living in a household with different generations and how you can come to a level of understanding if you just come with communication and love.
We've heard it all over the years. We should get at least 7 or 8 hours of sleep. But according to a new study out today, getting less may not be as harmful as expected. Another study published last week found that regular napping slows the rate at which our brains shrink, meaning a lower risk of dementia and better overall brain health. These findings give us more to think about around sleep science and reiterate the fact that there is no one-size-fits-all method of approaching sleep habits. For more on this, I'm joined live by Dr. Melissa Lem for our biweekly medical column. Dr. Lem, this seems to be sort of a flip-flop from what we've heard for, a lot of my life at least. What was found in this new research to bring about such change?
Well, Anita, a lot of us probably know at least one person who belongs to the unicorn group that this new study zeroed in on. People who get less sleep than the recommended 7 to 8 hours per night, but are still full of energy. So there were 740 people in this study whose nightly sleeps were under 6 hours, but had no complaints about their sleep quality or their daytime sleepiness. And the interesting thing is that not only did these people have bigger brain volumes than the less than 6 hour sleepers who did report fatigue, but their brains were also bigger than people who got 7 to 8 hours per night. So this is a pretty significant finding because in general, the bigger your brain, the healthier it is. Other research has actually shown more brain shrinkage in people with cognitive problems and neurological diseases related to sleep issues.
I'm hoping my husband doesn't watch this tonight because he's an under 6 hour sleeper and always full of energy, and I'm always going after him for it. Today's study does say, though, that there could be consequences for people who sleep less than 6 hours. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, the unfortunate thing about all the short sleepers, even if they weren't tired during the day, was that they did have slightly lower general cognitive function than people who slept 7 to 8 hours per night. But putting all these studies findings together, I would say what it tells us is that the exact amount of sleep you need can vary a lot from person to person. What probably factors more into your brain health is if you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep or sleepiness during the day.
Okay, let's talk napping, because this new research that was out last week is suggesting a link between a larger brain volume as well and people who nap regularly. What does this mean, and do I need to start napping now? Because personally, I'm not a fan at all.
Anita, I think we might differ on that one because I personally am a fan of napping. But anyway, this nap study, which actually used one of the same data sets as the prior study, showed that people who napped regularly have bigger brains than those who don't. That said, although bigger brain volumes usually go hand in hand with better brain health, these regular nappers did not have better reaction time or visual memory or a larger hippocampus, which is essential for memory. In this case, bigger was not necessarily better for brain function. So thankfully, that means you don't need to start napping if you don't want to.
Okay, are there any concerns about both sets of research and how that research was done?
Well, there were a few limitations, including the fact that they looked at self-reports of sleep, which often differ from actual sleep. And the nap study didn't look at how long or when people were napping. But in general, I would say the take-home message is that if your sleep habits are working for you, don't change them. But if you do find yourself dozing off during the day, you might still want to aim for that 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night.
Dr. Lem, thank you so much.
Thanks, Anita.
Coming up, the leader of a Russian mercenary group defends its actions after leading Saturday's insurrection. The Kremlin's vow to punish those responsible for events some describe as the biggest threat to Putin's rule.
Sunday night in the town pump, and people are doing here what they do in clubs from Paris to Prince George. Drink in one hand, cigarette in the other. But this is the end of an era. When the taps are turned off for the day, the ashtrays will be picked up for the last time. The town pump will become Canada's first non-smoking club.
Actually, I think it's kind of a drag, but at the same time, I know an awful lot of non-smokers will probably be okay. I'll probably still come.
I think it's ridiculous. I figure, if we live in society with bunches of other people, we're going to eventually have to learn how to accept them.
Even smokers?
Even smokers, sure.
Well, the crowd is mixed. Club employees have made up their minds.
Are you going to light that thing? Not tonight. Maybe tomorrow night.
We're not inside.
No, not inside. Tickets, please, gentlemen.
Do you smoke? Do you smoke?
No, I don't. Actually, I'm a non-smoker.
So what's the cigar all about?
It's kind of a universal protest tonight.
No, I don't smoke cigars, but this is a protest. I smoke cigarettes.
And what do you think of...
I'm very unhappy, and I think it's a stupid change, and I have to go get the phone. It's my job.
All right. Other club owners say Dan McLean is crazy. He says it will work. After all, 3/4 of all British Columbians are non-smokers.
The trend is for non-smoking, and we have to change with the times.
The changing times mean more than just a no-smoking policy. The music's going to be changed too, from bands that play their original tunes to bands that play more popular music.
Monday night, and we're back. And as you can see, the signs are up. And I can't help but think back to times gone by when bars used to post signs telling people that they couldn't bring their guns in or their knives, that they couldn't swear, spit, or gamble. Well, the signs of the times are a-changing. And we can go in and see how things are going as soon as I get rid of this thing.
Still looks like the same place at first, but now you can read the no smoking signs without having to peer through the thick blue haze that hangs over other clubs.
It's kind of nice to be able to see the band without a big haze in the background and be able to breathe. It's nice.
I think it's the best thing happened in Vancouver since Expo.
I don't mind going to a bar when it's smoky, but I prefer it non-smoking.
While customers are enthusiastic about the idea, there just aren't many of them here. Most of the tables are empty. Still, it is a Monday night, and Dan McLean says it will pick up.
I'm not nervous at all.
Not all his employees are so sure. This person decided to call it quits.
I've worked here for 2 years, but I can't support something that I don't believe in, and I don't believe in the changes that they've made here.
Change is never easy. Dan McLean remains convinced there are enough people out there who will support his smoke-free club, and he's willing to take the risk. Wayne Williams, CBC News, Vancouver.
An employee at the Royal Bank of Canada is taking a stand for his mental health. And when he tried to get a disability leave to recover from burnout, anxiety, and depression, his insurance provider, Manulife, denied the claim. As he tells Go Public's Erica Johnson, RBC told him to get back to work or be fired.
This RBC financial planner had recently been a top performer, but last year a family member died. Someone broke into his home. It all affected his work. Someone else is reading his words.
It was really difficult to concentrate, to focus. I'd forget a lot of things. I was suffering from insomnia and couldn't eat.
Compounding problems, he says, relentless work pressure to meet objectives and sales targets. Go Public has investigated the high-pressure sales environment inside all the big banks.
You're pre-approved for overdraft protection. I can activate that for you right now.
Thousands of present and former employees described to us the pressure to sell or risk termination. The RBC employee sought short-term disability leave through his company's insurer, Manulife. A doctor diagnosed him with burnout, a common issue according to a recent survey by Mental Health Research Canada. More than 1 in 5 people reported frequently experiencing workplace burnout. Manulife declined the claim, saying burnout is not a recognized medical condition. The employee's doctor did further medical testing and diagnosed him with generalized anxiety disorder and major depressive episode. Manulife still denied it, saying the evidence didn't support his claim. RBC said get back to work or be fired.
Most of us inherently have a drive to want to be productive. And so when we have someone who is coming to us for help, the appropriate response is to say, how can we help? Not, you can do this, and if you don't do it, you lose your job.
Manulife declined an interview request citing privacy concerns, but wrote in a statement it's proud of the support it gives its customers. RBC also declined an interview, but said it considers the well-being of its employees a top priority. After Go Public got involved, RBC said it was reviewing new information and put its employees' termination date on hold. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
The shooter who targeted LGBTQ people at a nightclub in Colorado is going to prison for life.
How do you plead?
Guilty.
Anderson Lead Ulrich pleaded guilty to the murder of 5 people and the attempted murder of 46 others. The shooting happened at the Club Q nightclub in Colorado Springs last November. The leader of the Wagner mercenary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, spoke out today for the first time since he launched a short-lived armed rebellion in Russia on Saturday. As Briar Stewart tells us, he's defending the insurrection, insisting he did not want to overthrow the Russian government, but wanted to hold the country's military leadership to account.
President Vladimir Putin was visibly angry, saying what happened on the weekend was exactly what Ukraine and the West wanted, a Russia at war with itself. He said he did everything to avoid bloodshed during a miscalculated betrayal. Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin was last seen in Rostov-on-Don, apparently heading to Belarus after a negotiated end to the rebellion. 2 days later, from an undisclosed location, he posted a message to social media trying to explain his violent revolt. We went to demonstrate our protest and not to overthrow the government. The Wagner leader had been raging against Russian defense officials for months. Where do you think Prigozhin is now?
I don't know. Whatever. I don't know. I don't want to know.
Yevgeny Popov is a Russian politician and a host on state television, which is awash with the same narrative. Putin did the right thing to negotiate, even though Prigozhin deserves much worse.
He is a traitor. But now we will give him a life abroad for one reason. To save lives and to take time to win this war.
On Monday evening, Putin met with the heads of several security services and his defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, one of Prigozhin's stated enemies. There are few details about how a heavily armed convoy was able to travel hundreds of kilometers towards Moscow, shooting down Russian aircraft along the way. Putin praised the Wagner fighters, saying most of them are patriots. In Rostov-on-Don, they were treated like heroes.
He also used very strong language.
And this Russian expert says they're badly needed by the country's military, which is why punishing Prigozhin is tricky.
The authorities are pursuing 2 strategies altogether. One is that Prigozhin is a traitor and a criminal. And the other strategy is that he is a bastard, but he's still an our bastard, and we need to keep him as an our ally.
That's the CBC's Briar Stewart reporting tonight. Now, as you heard, the Kremlin was quick to blame the West for the chaos. And as Katie Simpson shows us, that was something international leaders were prepared for.
U.S. President Joe Biden chose his first public words carefully, distancing the West from the brief Russian uprising.
We made clear that we were not involved. We had nothing to do with it. This was part of a struggle within the Russian system. I also talked to
Biden says he doesn't want to give Vladimir Putin an opportunity to blame this mess on NATO, organizing a coordinated response among allies, a display of the same unity leaders have wielded since Russia invaded Ukraine.
We need to make sure that we are not facilitating the liberal use of propaganda and disinformation that we know the Russians tend to do.
NATO leaders are now watching to see whether the distraction changes Russia's military strategy on the front lines of the war, and whether Ukraine's army can exploit the chaos to make badly needed gains.
It's too early to predict with certainty what the consequences of this might be, but of course we are prepared, as we always would be.
One scenario they are monitoring closely is whether Russia changes its nuclear posture.
We don't see any indication that Russia is preparing to use nuclear weapons, but NATO remains vigilant.
As do European Union members who met in Luxembourg. announcing another 3.5 billion euros in military support for Ukraine. These leaders largely see this power struggle as a remarkable failure for Putin.
And the monster that Putin created with the Wagner, the monster is biting him now. The monster is acting against his creator.
The view from the White House is whatever took place this past weekend is not fully over. U.S. officials were surprised there wasn't more bloodshed and that the best course forward for the West, for now, is to let this play out inside Russia. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
A day after experiencing the worst air quality in the world, things are feeling a lot cleaner today in Montreal. Why the toxic skies aren't gone for long. Next.
When I had my son, I was in first year university. I was 20. I was a kid. I was too young. But I was like, oh, I can do it. I'm responsible, I can do it. You know, it's not gonna be a piece of cake, and it wasn't. I had a moment of like being my parent at one point. My son was like, Dad, I want a camera. And I was like, what do you want a camera for? He's like, I want to be a vlogger. That's what I want to do every day. And I was like this close to saying, no, you can't be a vlogger, Dad. You have to be able to put food on the table. And I'm like, I'm an actor. I can't tell him that he can't be a vlogger. So I was like, okay, I'll get you a camera. Being told I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. I don't want that for them. Like, I want them to feel like and believe that they can do whatever they want. So practice makes perfect is kind of like a family motto with me and my kids, and like to know that you can do anything, but you have to put the work into it.
Lafleur. NHL career, he scored 560 goals. His biggest, likely this 1979 goal against the Boston Bruins. The Canadians went on to win the Stanley Cup that year, their fourth cup in 4 years. Lafleur was referred to as the Flower and dominated the Quebec sports landscape in the 70s and early 80s. He enjoyed 14 seasons in Montreal, rewriting the record book along the way. It wasn't always easy.
Didn't play much the first 3 years and didn't have any confidence. And I think when Scotty started to play me more, I got more confidence.
Lafleur quickly became a star on the ice and was known to enjoy his time away from the rink as well. In 1981, Lafleur narrowly avoided catastrophe when he crashed his Cadillac after a game. Lafleur played 3 more seasons in Montreal before a bitter dispute with management led to his abrupt retirement. Lafleur was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1988.
When I was a kid, all I wanted to be is to become a hockey player. Not a star, nor a Superman.
But he wasn't done playing. The same year, he returned to the ice with the New York Rangers.
Lafleur makes the move, and again, Lafleur comes in. Another move, he's taken down, he shoots wide.
Before finishing his career with the Quebec Nordiques. Lafleur's legacy was vast. 5 Stanley Cups, 2 MVP awards, and in 2017, he was named one of the 100 best players in NHL history. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
A bit of reprieve today for people living in and around Montreal. Yesterday, an online rating system said the city had the worst air quality in the world because of 24 out-of-control wildfires across the province. As Valeria Corimanocchio reports, the winds have now shifted, rain is on the horizon, and things are looking better.
It wasn't the ideal start to the first day of camp. When kids would usually be outdoors, activities were moved inside because of the poor air quality.
We had to switch them into a gym or to a studio. We had to change a plan slightly to make sure that all campers and staff were safe in their first day of camp.
The city of Montreal closed outdoor pools and splash pads, shut down outdoor sports facilities, and canceled outdoor cultural events Sunday because of the smog. But by midday today, all were given the green light to reopen, and summer camps could resume activities outside.
We see very rarely these very high levels. Really, even otherwise healthy people can be affected, and that's why over the last day we put out some stronger recommendations.
The fine particles in the air Sunday were 5 to 6 times higher than the last time smoke coated the city earlier this month. Although conditions are improving, Dr. Kaiser says there are still precautions people can take, including staying indoors with the windows shut. Environment Canada recommends using an air purifier with a high-efficiency particulate air filter inside and wearing a well-fitted respirator-type mask like an N95 outside.
It also shows us that we need to think about, over the next few years, as this becomes part of our reality, what are the measures that we have in place?
Environment Canada says things should continue to improve.
The major factor will be the southeasterly winds that will push the whole plume towards the northwest.
He says upcoming rain will also help improve air quality. Montreal's Air Quality Health Index is expected to go down to a low health risk by tomorrow. Valeria Corey-Minocchio, CBC News, Montreal.
Well, since the devastating and deadly heat dome a few years back in BC, many people in this province have invested in heat pumps as a way to keep their home both cool and warm. But not every homeowner is entitled to the hefty government rebates on offer. As Yasmin Renea reports, some eager to find a way to keep cool say they're financially left out.
So it gets incredibly hot. So here we have one of our 2 portable air conditioners.
Chris Ramsey and his wife Sarah need 2 air conditioners to lower the heat in their Richmond condo.
I've noticed that if it's 25 outside, which can be not a bad day, it tends to be 35 in here.
A potentially dangerous temperature for their 17-year-old cat, Cheddar. So they looked into getting a heat pump that uses outside air to cool a home in the summer and heat it in the winter. Heat pumps are environmentally friendly and save money in the long run. The province and the federal government offer rebates for installing a heat pump. People living in detached houses and townhomes can get thousands of dollars. But condo and apartment owners like the Ramseys aren't eligible for any rebates.
It's devastating. It's disappointing. You get told about this solution of the heat pump, and then you realize that it's so expensive.
3 companies all estimated it would cost more than $20,000 for Ramsey to install a heat pump.
And it was $25,000 plus GST plus $950 for electrical.
Following the heat dome in the summer of 2021 that resulted in several days of high temperatures and more than 600 heat-related deaths, a BC Coroner Service report recommended the province provide air conditioners and heat pumps as medical devices to save lives. But that has yet to happen. BC Hydro, which administers the rebate program, says the purpose of the rebate is to encourage people to switch from a gas to an energy-efficient electric heating and cooling system. But it says apartments use significantly less energy than houses. Ramsey says without the rebate, a heat pump is unaffordable, leaving the couple with what they call a loud Band-Aid solution. Yasmin Renea, CBC News, Richmond.
And this is our cue to check in with Amy Bell about that hot weather that's coming, and I'm sure people scrambling to get their AC and all that.
Yeah, I would think so, especially this week. We're sort of staring down at a short and long-term forecast for us here on the South Coast that will be very warm. Chance of some thunder and lightning against sort of the North Shore Mountains and out in the Fraser Valley this evening, and then again tomorrow when we do have that chance of lightning strikes for much of the province, right up from the very northeast part all the way down through the Caribou and the Peace and the Kootenays and out into the Okanagan. You could see tomorrow afternoon, sort of late in the day, that's when we'll really see things get quite active across the province. will be short-lived, but of course, with all of those tinder dry conditions and the risk of fires, we're going to have to keep a very strong eye on things. So the next 24 hours will be where we're most liable to see any new fires starting. Tomorrow, Tofino, you are going to be looking at some very drizzly weather. You're just going to have a hard time getting out of that low cloud that will sock in on the area. But for much of Vancouver Island, we're looking at sunshine and very warm temperatures once again. Unstable up in Whistler again tomorrow afternoon, so a good chance of some lightning and thunder there. Tomorrow out in the Fraser Valley, we're looking at mid-20s. It will get a little bit warmer each day as we head through the week. Beautiful in Dees Lake tomorrow with a high of 23, 19 for Prince Rupert. The North Coast looking great. Port Hardy checking in around 19 tomorrow. But yeah, you can see this is our usual trouble spot, and tomorrow will be no exception. And already is seeing some thunder and lightning in those areas today. Definitely saw a lot of strikes earlier in that northeast corner of the province. Taking a look at our 5-day forecast, it's sunny and it's warm. This was a really easy graphic to put it together. So we've got sunshine, 25 inland for tomorrow. We'll get up to about 27 inland on Wednesday and Thursday. And by the weekend on Saturday, we're looking at 28 inland. And of course, with the humidity, it'll feel closer to 30 degrees. So that's what we're looking at for the next 5 days at least.
All right, here we go. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Well, anyone who has struggled to help a family member find their path may find this story inspiring. A devoted mom has helped her son build a creative career as an entrepreneur. Aaron is 29 and is autistic. His mom describes him as a young artist.
How do we start?
Now how do we start?
Up and down or across?
Across.
Okay. We started Brick Art by Aaron in January of 2015. When Aaron finished high school, at that time the government had started cutting back on group programming for young people with autism. We didn't see a path for him through the regular work situation, and decided that we would try and set up this little business to give him an idea of what responsibility was. Does Mom have to do something?
No.
We've had some that have gone to South America, New York, Europe. And we did a mosaic of this across the city of Edmonton. So that's probably the biggest one that we've done. He just lights up when he hands them over to the people because they're always thrilled with the work. I kind of do the first part of the creating. I play around with the colors and get it set up. And then Aaron sits down and puts it together. Is that the right one? He likes things that are very precise, things that are all the same. So it's the perfect activity for him. This one?
Yes.
This isn't something that you can put a time limit on. Aaron is going to have autism until the day he dies. I mean, it's hard for most parents to let go of their kids, but it's really hard to let go of this guy. This is a lifelong opportunity for Aaron to continually grow.
Coming up, a Kootenay man and his dog are gearing up for an international contest. Yes, to be the world's best sheepdog.
The last transatlantic flight from St. John's to London, UK, departed in 2019, and it hasn't returned. The route was grounded due to problems with the Boeing 737 MAX, but the CEO of the St. John's International Airport Authority says the pandemic, which all but halted air travel around the world, has made it much more difficult to bring that flight and others back.
We have been working on getting international flights back to the airport as soon after the ones that we did have concluded. So that's been ongoing for many years now, including through the years of the pandemic. Now we're in a position where those are becoming a bit more detailed in terms of the types of negotiations that we're having.
Dennis Hogan was speaking at a St. John's Board of Trade event focused on the issue of air access. Board of Trade CEO Anne-Marie Boudreau says it's one businesses in this province struggle with.
We live on an island on the eastern edge of Canada, and if you are going to run your business, grow your business, collaborate with others outside of the province, being able to come and go from Newfoundland and Labrador is critical for business success.
Before I took over this role,
Hogan wants the provincial government to offer a revenue guarantee, meaning a safer investment for an airline, but a potential risk for the provincial government.
Given the changes that are taking place in the airline sector globally, revenue guarantees have become part of the potential package that's reviewed when airlines make decisions on where they are going to establish different routes.
Earlier this year, the government of Saskatchewan announced it would provide a revenue guarantee for a WestJet flight between Saskatoon and a U.S. destination. That was worth up to $2.2 million over 3 years. Tourism Minister Steve Crocker says a revenue guarantee may be an option here too, though there's no agreement in place yet.
Any proposal that would come to us, we would certainly evaluate it. That is a new model that was referenced today. That is not something that I don't think we've used that model before, but it's a pretty, it brings a pretty strong model because obviously, it's betting on the success, or not betting is the right word, but it's investing on the success of a route. So if you believe in your route when you go to negotiate or have a conversation with an airline, you can say, we would look at a revenue guarantee because we're confident that this route would work.
Hogan says for now, the airport will continue discussions about bringing transatlantic flights back to St. John's. But for now, no concrete plans are taking off. Daryl Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC Vancouver is the premier media partner of the 2023 Surrey Fusion Festival, July 22nd and 23rd. Visit the festive cultural pavilions, enjoy free live music and family activities. And the 13th annual Indian Summer Festival takes place July 6th to the 16th. The festival's powerful 10-event lineup speaks to the theme of interdependence. Tickets at indiansummerfest.ca.
One Kootenay man and his canine are headed to Ireland this September to represent Canada at the 2023 World Sheepdog Trials. And they'll be competing against more than 200 others for the world title. As Corey Bullock explains, it's something the duo have been working on for years.
For George Stambulik and his border collie Sweep, running sheep is more than just a hobby.
When you have a dog that's been bred to do a job, you spend a lot of time with those dogs.
Stambulik has been working with border collies for 25 years. Last year, he and Sweep won the 2022 Canadian Reserve Nursery Trials in Alberta. Now they're headed to Ireland to represent Canada on the world stage.
It's a massive event, and I'm just hoping that I can do well for Canada.
Sweep is 6 years old. He won his first Canadian title at the age of 2, and Stambulik says their bond is like no other.
Dogs themselves are, if you get a bond with them and you're doing what they're bred to do, they latch on to that.
The first recorded sheepdog trials began in the 1800s in Wales. Today, there are hundreds of trials in the UK alone.
It's all work-based, and it shows all the aspects that shepherds would need to do their job.
Stambulik uses a series of commands to guide Sweep.
The commands that I use on Sweep are lie down, which doesn't necessarily mean to lie down. It's basically a stop command. Lie down. I'll say take time, which means to slow down and not push a sheep so hard. Watch.
Stambulik says it takes much more than just him and Sweep to be able to do the sport they both love.
I have lots of friends that are all pitching in to help out, and then of course my family.
And while Stambulik and Sweep prepare for the competition, they hope more British Columbians will learn about this unique sport and maybe even compete with them. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
I've got a little bit of time to practice. Those trials are happening September 13th to 16th in Ireland, like Corey mentioned. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you some good news update. Okay, a kayaker near Australia's famed Bondi Beach was treated to a rare sight recently.
Wowee.
Wow, epic drone footage captured this weekend shows the paddler with one of the Earth's largest mammals, a humpback whale. The curious creature cruised alongside the kayak in a playful swim through the pristine blue Australian waters near Sydney. The whale is one of 50,000 expected in a migration known as the Humpback Highway from Antarctica. That crystal clear water and that view is absolutely incredible. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News.